Charlotte McLeod with investingnews.com, and here today with me is Byron King of Paradigm Press. He was formerly Agora Financial. He is a longtime newsletter writer, a geologist, and he works closely with Jim Rickards. Thank you so much for being here. Great to have you.
It is a pleasure to be with you. We've missed each other a couple of conferences in a row, so we can finally catch up.
Yes, I caught you this time, and we're here at the New Orleans Investment Conference for context, and we've gotten to the end of day 3, so I think I can ask if you have any takeaways you'd share in terms of sentiment, things you're hearing on the show floor.
The sentiment is very positive. I mean, as we speak today, they tell me, I don't know, but they tell me the market's selling down. I think that's just a thing. What you hear at this conference, both from the attendees and from the exhibitors, is that there is a robustness to the resource sector, gold, silver, of course, but others as well, copper, lead, zinc, rare earths, uranium, all these things. One person put it really well. He said it used to be that when a company went out to raise money, they would raise $3 million or $5 million or $10 million was considered a big raise. Now, really good companies with management teams and a good project, they can raise $20 million, $50 million bucks. And so that's not insider money. That's not like our little mining sector money coming in. That's generalist money coming in from the other side of the market, from all that vaporware over there on the other side.
Well, I think those are really good takeaways, and you're right. It's very, very positive sentiment here, especially around the precious metals. I will spend a little bit of time with you, I think, on this pullback that we're seeing in gold and silver, and maybe you can add some context there, because although there is positivity, there is also some concern about how long this might last. When do we start to go back up again? So what thoughts would you share there?
Well, that's a nice question of, when do we start to go back up again? I think the first thing to do is just kind of reassure yourself, if you're in this market or if you're looking to get into this market. Let's say you're somebody out there and you just haven't done it because you've had other priorities in life, you've got other interests. Should I get in now or should I wait? Or should there be a big pullback? Whatever. These are the kind of questions people have, whether you're in the market or whether you're not. I do think, based on what I've heard here and just on my own research, just as the newsletter writer guy, I think that where we are now with, say, gold and silver, gold in the, let's call it $4,000 range. It might be in the 3,900s, but that's statistical noise in a lot of respects. Silver in the, pick a number, $48 range. It might be 47. Again, statistical noise. What's the downside risk? I don't think the downside risk is big. I mean, at $4,000 gold, are we going to see $3,000 gold? I doubt it. We're going to see $2,000 gold. It would be, I cannot conceive of that, but I never say never, but I just don't think it's possible. Is the upside potential still there? Yeah, absolutely. How soon? Looking at what's going on, not tomorrow, not next week, not next month, but if you're in it for the long term, the answer is absolutely yes. It's the usual litany of national embarrassments. Inflation is sticky. Inflation is permanent. The Federal Reserve simply cannot raise rates. Brian London, our dear friend Brian, who sponsors this conference, in his talk on Sunday night, his welcome aboard talk to 600 people or 700 people, whatever it was, in the audience, he basically made a point. He showed a few slides, made a point that the Federal Reserve is really constrained basically forever from raising interest rates, because when they raise rates, the interest on the national debt goes up, and the United States, cannot afford to pay high interest on the national debt. We can't afford to pay the interest we pay now. But national embarrassments. Inflation is there. It's sticky. We're really stuck in an interest rate swamp, you might say. Federal deficits are just, bottomless, endless. We never pass a budget anyhow. The government's, as we speak, the government's shut down. Maybe it'll open up the next couple of days. I don't know. But national debt, 38 trillion. Interest on the debt, 1.7 trillion. This all comes. The numbers simply do not add up. Rick Rule yesterday gave a brilliant talk where he did add up the numbers, and they don't add up. I think you may have seen it. He basically listed all the numbers, and here's the numbers. Do they add up? Well, they do add up, but they don't add up, if you know what I mean. So, what does that mean for gold, silver? It's the downside's limited, the upside is wide open. What does that mean for gold, silver miners? Again, every company can have its bad day, what have you. A good company with good management, good assets, is destined for success far more so than than your typical vaporware company. And as far as the other hard assets of the world, I mean, you've got your gold, silver, monetary metals, then you've got everything else. Copper, lead, zinc, antimony, tungsten, rare earths. All the periodic table of the military metals, is I like to call them. The stuff that you can actually do things with. Run an industrial economy. Certainly have a military establishment.
Okay, we've got so many topics that we can
Lots
go in
on the
there.
plate here, sorry.
A
Yeah.
small follow up on the gold and silver stocks
Sure.
right now, just because I think people are wondering how they should strategize there right now, especially if when they saw the prices go up, maybe they took profits. But people might be thinking now, you hear early on in the bull market, you should go for the producers, then you can move on down the chain. So maybe just any thoughts on where people might want to focus right now.
Sure, and where people might focus depends on who those people are. Absolutely. I mean, if you're a low risk person, you want to focus on mining companies that are producing, companies that are producing gold, because right now a lot of the cost per ounce to produce that gold is $1,200, $1,400, $1,500, $1,800 in a $4,000 world. There's a lot of profit on that, and so some of these companies are showing blowout earnings. And even though they show the blowout earnings, Wall Street still hasn't figured this out. If you buy stocks because you think that they have a value proposition to them, what could be more value proposition than a company that's making $2,000 an ounce on the gold that it mines out of the ground? That's an easy one. I like advanced developers who are on their way towards production, to the extent that they're on their way towards production, or to the extent that they're going to get bought by somebody who just they just want to bring them into the camp. As you move down the development scale into, say, advanced exploration, there's a lot of really great advanced exploration companies that, like Rodney Dangerfield, they got no respect for the last 5, 6, 7 years, whatever. But they've been out there working. They've been out there drilling, finding, building models, putting ounces on the paper, pounds in the ground, good numbers. And there's a whole lot of really nice companies like that. I mean, I'm not ashamed to mention Contango or CTGO. Contango, they're one of the exhibitors here, and they give you some of everything. They are a producer in Alaska. They are actually producing high-grade 8 gram per ton ore, which they then ship up to Kinross, and they process it, split the money. That's okay. And then they have another project that's an advanced development project called Lucky Shot, and I visited it in July. I was up in Alaska. I went down into the tunnel with my hard hat and my boots and all my vest and all that good stuff, and I literally stood at the ore seam and I put my finger on the ore bodies and I was looking at it. It's developing, and it's going to turn into something good. And then they have a sort of an advanced exploration at a place called Johnson Tract, which is about 130 miles southwest of Anchorage. Visited that, and oh my goodness, the stuff that they're pulling out of the ground and the cores on the drills is phenomenal. And so there's exploration upside like you wouldn't believe. So, I know everybody wants, they want ideas. Contango or CTGO. There you go.
Thank you very much for sharing. And while we're on the note of precious metals, when we were corresponding ahead of this interview, you mentioned you're going in a lot of directions right now. Platinum is one of them, so I wanted to bring it up. For me, it reminds me of silver with kind of that prolonged deficit, and now we've seen the price move this year. What are your thoughts on platinum? How are you approaching that one?
Platinum's problem, so to speak, for let's say 10 years, has been that there is this global idea that internal combustion engines are going to go away, and one of the big uses for platinum was in a catalytic converter on a combustion car, on your gasoline engine. And when people say, well, in the future we're going to do away with these internal combustion cars, we're going to drive little electric cars, and that really caused the whole platinum sector to just wither. I mean, it didn't die, but it withered. And you had really great companies like, say, Sibanye-Stillwater out in Montana that were just barely keeping the doors open. I mean, they were laying people off just because they just couldn't make it work. But they didn't close the mine. Good for them. And but anyhow, what people have figured out in the last year or so is that no, our future is not all EVs. Our future is going to include internal combustion for the next generation or 2 or 3, and so so that revitalized the platinum sector. We saw platinum go from, pick a number, $900 to whatever it is now, 16, 17. So there's a nice future for platinum. It's a very important industrial metal. It's used in chemicals industry, petroleum refining, aerospace, lots of electronics, lots of uses besides just platinum jewelry and coins and whatever else.
Yeah, lots of applications there. Okay, we'll leave precious metals behind because we have a lot to cover, and I want to make sure we get into critical minerals because I think this is really important. I'm going to start with rare earths because there's been so much attention. I'm seeing mainstream media headlines about rare earths because of the U.S.-China tensions, and I know that is ramped down a little bit right now, but I can't imagine that this is something that's not going to rear its head again in the future. But for people who are looking at that and thinking, all right, maybe I do want to get into rare earths, how should they approach it? Maybe the time is not now because it's so heated, but what do you think?
Well, the first thing you should do is read up on it. A little bit. I mean, I'm not asking everybody to take a course in advanced mineral chemistry or something like that, but you should understand what these things are. But basically, your life, my life out there in watcher land and viewer land, our lives are run by rare earths. You just don't know it. I put my coat behind the chair here, but I would usually pull out my cell phone at this point and point to it and say, my cell phone, out of 92 elements in the periodic table, my cell phone has 63 of them in it. None of them by accident, including a bunch of the rare earth elements. But electronics don't work without rare earths. Magnets, motors. If you're in your car and you push the little button and the window goes up or down, or you move your seat back and forth, or you move the steering wheel or the power steering, none of that works without rare earths because you've got these little booster motors in your car that make these things work. Let alone the electric vehicles, let alone so much else, and then you get into the whole military angle to it. Pretty much every weapon that's worth having, other than maybe a rock or a spear, has rare earth component to it. I mean, when my son came back from Iraq, he had to turn in all his classified electronic gear and everything else, and I was thinking about all that stuff that he's handing across the table back to the quartermaster or whatever, and all that stuff, your night vision goggles, certain of the communications gear, optics on the rifles and everything else, it all has rare earths in it. The guidance systems, the missiles, the jet engines, the F-35s, the submarines, the destroyers, they all have rare earths in them in one form or another. Electronics, magnets, optics, so many different things. I didn't answer the question though.
Oh, yes. Well, yeah, I guess the question is essentially, so very hot right now, we could see all the applications. Should you come into the space right now?
It's not a bad idea, but you got to come into the space understanding what's out there. The really hot name has been MP Materials. And say, well, MP Materials, they have this rare earth mine in California. Yeah, they do. And yes, there are rare earths in what they mine. It's as a geologist, as a mineralogy guy, it's not quite the right ore for all the rare earths you want. There are other places, there are other and better rare earth deposits in America, in Canada, elsewhere in Australia, elsewhere in the world, and so that question turns the whole idea of rare earths into where's your feedstock, and then the next question is what do you do with this stuff once you mine it? Because if all you do is mine rock, and just about anybody can mine rock, you can take the rock and you can crush it into little stones or whatever, but if you can't process it into something else that you can use, you may as well just sell it to the railroad to use as track ballast, sell it to the highway department for roadbed. You have to turn the rock into a product, and that is where the refinement, comes in. And now the question is, can MP Materials do that? Can some of these other rare earth wannabes, do that? Are there good companies out there doing that are not called, China? The answer is yes. I mean, China has a very brute force approach to, doing rare earths. They've been doing it for 40 years. They mine a lot of stuff, they crush it up, they dissolve it in acid, and they do a lot of chemistry, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of resources, and it's an environmental mess, but they do have a whole food chain or a whole processing chain to get it down to very, very, very high quality end products. Can the West leapfrog probably a generation or even 2 generations of technology and catch up with them? The answer is yes, and I actually have a really great company that can do that, but I'm not going to tell you what the name is because I save that for the readers, and it's a back end part, one of the things, but it won't be too hard to figure out. They're building a plant in Louisiana, so not just right up the river in Alexandria from where we are.
Okay, well, hopefully people can find the clues and do some digging there. So when it comes to rare earths, we should think about being in the sector. We've got to keep an eye on the processing. The other thing I wanted to ask you about when it comes to that, and you mentioned MP materials, and we've had the government get involved there. It seems like the U.S. government is starting to get more serious about rare earths and the other critical minerals, but rare earths.
Absolutely. There are flashes in the pan that they come and they go, and there are other things that are not flashes in the pan. I think right now, it is very fair, it is very safe to say that rare earth development in the West, in general, the USA in particular, rare earth development is a bipartisan national strategic priority. I mean, you've got President Trump, you've got the whole administration, pushing these ideas, and you say, well, they're supporting this company, that company, whatever. Yeah, but they're doing that for a reason. It's because China has said we're going to embargo rare earths. They have embargoed rare earths. Then recently they said not only are we really restricting rare earths, we're going to restrict the rare earths that if you buy them from us and you put them in another product, we're going to restrict that product too. And the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent just not too long ago said China really crossed the line on that. I think he was just waiting for an excuse to say that. From the standpoint of managing American strategic safety, North American strategic safety, throw Canada in there too. I mean, you're part of North America whether you like it or not. But in terms of managing the strategic security of this continent, there is no way that the military complex can rely in the future on China as a supplier. They are an unreliable supplier. They are politically motivated to hurt us. They've weaponized it. They've shown how they weaponized it. Not that we don't weaponize stuff against them too, but this is too important. This is truly the jugular vein. It's the carotid artery. It's the left anterior descending vein out of your heart. You break that one, and you're killing the economy. You are destroying not just the military. You're destroying the automotive sector, the electronic sector. Just a whole lot of sectors. They just go away, and the military kind of dies on the vine as well. So I would call it a quiet Manhattan Project. I mean, the Manhattan Project was so secret that nobody knew what it was, but everybody knows what the Manhattan Project was now. You saw the movie Oppenheimer. Yeah, okay, everybody knows. Rare earths are another Manhattan Project, but they're being done, without calling it that, in terms of get it done fast, get it done right, get the science right, and we're going to work out the engineering, build those plants as quickly as you can. We want them online by the middle of 2026, and we want them producing stuff by early 2027. And those dates are magic dates in geopolitics because, as Xi Jinping said that by 2027 we want the Chinese army to be ready to retake Taiwan, which is another way of saying by 2027 we want to have a war in the Pacific, and so we may or may not have a war in the Pacific, but you can't plan as if you're not going to have it. If you plan to have the war, maybe you won't. If you don't plan to have a war, you probably will. So
rare earths clearly highly important right now, but it's not just rare earths that the U.S. government is interested in right now. And I think investors might be wondering, all right, so what else should I be looking for? Because it seems a lot of the time, you mentioned antimony, I think earlier in the conversation, and it sometimes seems like these things come out of nowhere, and I know that they don't, they come out of somewhere, but it might feel like that to people, and to find the next one that's going to be something that's talked about and should be looked at might be pretty tricky. So any advice there?
Sure. Well, we mentioned antimony. I mean, if you went to a NFL football stadium on Sunday and you talked to 60,000 people and you said, how many who can tell me anything about antimony? You might find a couple of hundred people in that whole stadium who could tell you anything about antimony, let alone anything critical or important about it. We're in this nice Hilton hotel here in New Orleans. The carpet is fireproofed with an antimony-based chemical. If you ride on an airplane, it's antimony-based fireproofing. It is a metal hardener. Your car, your airplane, your aircraft engines, your locomotives, the train wheels on the tracks and everything. They're hardened with antimony. Antimony is absolutely critical to making ammunition. It's used as a primer to fire the round. So it's critical in whether it's just your little 9mm round, or whether it's something bigger, whether it's a 155mm round, or whether it's a big 500-pound bomb, or whether it's a rocket motor, what have you. Antimony is critical. Now you say, well, how much antimony do we produce in the United States? Right now, just about none. And where do we get our antimony from? Well, we used to get it from China. How much has China exported to us in the last year? That's an easy number, 0. This much. They embargoed that. Don't think that the Department of Defense, Department of War, whatever, hasn't figured that out. Where do we get our antimony? Well, we scrounge around other places in the world. Russia produces it. North Korea produces it. A nice, reliable supplier there. There are other countries in the world that produce it, but they're not reliable suppliers. China, Russia, North Korea. Come on, guys. Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan. Kind of far away and problematic chains to get here. Are there plays in the United States? Yeah, sure. I'll mention Perpetua, which is I've known you for a while. It goes back to what's called Radius Gold. Radius Gold was a gold company with an antimony angle to it. After a while, they figured it out. They became an antimony company with a gold angle to it. It's how you market it. But they're in Idaho in a place called stibnite, and that's interesting because the principal ore of antimony is stibnite. So in the Second World War, much of this antimony that was used in the U.S. military came from stibnite, Idaho. And in fact, I remember talking to somebody who said one of the largest single uses of antimony in human history was the Battle of Iwo Jima, where dozens of American battleships and cruisers lined up offshore of Iwo Jima in February of 1945 and just bombarded the island for weeks, with big guns, these big 16-inch guns, and those big powder bags that were exploded. They had antimony in them to accelerate the explosion. So you can't do metal hardening, you can't do fireproofing, you can't do ammunition, you can't do explosives, you can't do rocket motors without antimony. And so again, China has proven to be an unfriendly, unreliable supplier of the material. What are you going to do? You are strategically going to make a decision to build your own separate antimony supply chain, from the mine to the mill to the refinement to the end product. And you're going to do it as close as you possibly can to, keep your cards to your chest. So that would, so the United States, if we can do it interior, that's great. U.S. and Canada together, whatever. U.S., Canada, Australia, yeah. Other parts of Europe, NATO, Europe, yeah, sure. We'll work with everybody for that.
Yeah, well, if you didn't know what antimony was, I think now this is a pretty good overview. So we've run
more than you wanted to know, perhaps.
No, I don't know. We need to learn about it. And I think that we've run through some of your favorites right now. I want to ask you a question that I've been trying to bring to everybody here, which is if we look forward to 2026, what would your pick for the top performing asset be for the year?
Oh, wow. Holy smokes. I think gold has more to run in the sense that so many people own gold, so many people own silver. $4,000 gold could be $5,000 gold. When you say what's going to be the top performing, what's going to produce the most amount of money for the most amount of people, it'll probably be rising gold. Some people will make money in antimony or in tungsten or in other exotic, but the big savior of wealth to the investing classes out there, the investing people out there, the big salvation of your wealth is going to be backing it up with precious metals, gold and silver, throw some platinum in there, what have you. Because when gold goes up, it doesn't mean that the gold itself has changed. It's still gold is gold is gold. It means that the value of the dollar is going down. It means that the people's perception of the usefulness of a dollar is going down. The rest of the world is de-dollarizing. We America, Canada, we have a stock market culture. We don't have a gold silver culture. And you go to the rest of the world. India, China, Middle East. South America, and you say, well, how do you hold your wealth? Well, they won't even tell you, but what they really want to say is, I have my wealth in gold and silver and precious gems or something like that. So best performing class in the next year. Don't overthink it. Stick with the basics. Gold, silver. If you want to get exotic, yeah, sure. You can get into rare earths. You can get into antimony, things like that. I'm working on a helium play, and it's a helium. Yeah, most of the companies out there that are doing helium have really, low percentage helium coming out of the ground in their gas, and it's a lot of it's coming out with natural gas. You've got to separate the hydrocarbons out of it and everything else. I'm working on one of the best pure play heliums I've ever seen anywhere. It's geologically fascinating. Again, I'm sorry, guys, but I'm saving that one for the subscribers. We talked about it in Nashville, Tennessee, a couple weeks ago at a conference. But yeah, so you say, well, why helium? Party balloons? No, don't use helium for party balloons. But you cannot make chips in a fabrication facility, silicon chips or semiconductor chips, without helium. They do not bake these substrates in this oxygen nitrogen atmosphere. You'll just burn up your substrate. You have to do it in an inert atmosphere. Well, what's a nice inert gas? Oh, helium. Yeah. So they use helium, and so there's so much out there if you want to look at it and you want to get interested in it. So and it's a pleasure to be able to do this kind of stuff for a living, and I love speaking with people like you. I love writing about it. I love trying to convey this level of thinking to people, and if you invest in it and make some money, even better.
Well, and I love hearing from you. We started with gold, we ended with gold. We have a little bit of everything else in between. So thank you so much for coming on. As always, it was great to have you.
So it's a pleasure. I wish you well. Anybody out there, if you're still watching, thank you for watching. She's wonderful. What more can I say?
Well, thank you so much. Once again, I'm Charlotte McLeod with investingnews.com, and this is Byron King.